and welcome to this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hennig. This week on the podcast, we're going to get into what LeBron James is going to do this summer. What options does he have? We're also getting into the latest Avengers 4 movie rumors, as well as the state of Bryant's free agency, along with some DC Universe movie film news and what TV shows have been extended and canceled among the comic book shows, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks' new head coaching hire. So let's open up a six-pack and get started. Topic number one on this week's Mutant Blitz podcast, that Game 2 loss the Cavs just had to the Celtics this week, putting the Cavs not just in a 2-0 hole, but a loss that saw LeBron as one of only three players who actually tried winning in that game on Tuesday night. LeBron James put up a triple-double. Kevin Love had a good game. Kyle Korver did his best. The rest of the team quit on him. And I am more convinced than ever that LeBron James, there's only a 2% chance LeBron stays in Cleveland another year. And that 2% chance is because if he doesn't like what's out on the free agent market, he can just say, you know what, I'll put it off for one more year. I'll opt in. I'll hang around for another season with the Cavs. Outside of that 2% chance, I really think LeBron is leaving. That team has quit on LeBron. That team has quit on themselves. That team has quit on their coach. That game was an absolute embarrassment. Guys like J.R. Smith and Rodney Hood and George Hill, Larry Nance Jr., these are guys who we know they have talent. We know they have ability. They're able to go out there and play very good minutes. And they put up a performance on Tuesday night. It was so bad, J.R. Smith had more fouls than points in that game. He had 0 points and 2 fouls in that game. Tyronn Lue is a miserable excuse for a coach. Tyronn Lue is stubborn. He thinks he's got it all figured out. He thinks he knows what's best. But yet he's got a weak basketball team that doesn't play defense. Unless they get a new head coach in there and they make some roster changes, that team is never going to get better. LeBron James are not on that team. I spoke with Ian Thompson, a longtime NBA writer. He's the author of the new book, The Soul of Basketball. It gets into that whole situation leading up to the NBA lockout. You know, LeBron leaving Cleveland, going to Miami, what happened with the lockout back in 2011. And I was asking him what he thinks LeBron James is going to do. And he had a lot of great points. But I thought this point was most poignant. And this is one of the reasons why I have really narrowed my list of possible locations for LeBron to go to this.
I agree that he and Dan Gilbert are not on the same page at all in all sorts of areas. But I think ownership influences LeBron in this decision as far as how good of an owner he'd be working with. Will the owner help him win championships? There's a reason why you only see the same teams contending year after year, winning the championships year after year. Mm-hmm. It's because it's just so hard to win an NBA championship, and if it doesn't start at the top and work its way down from top to bottom, that team can't win.
So if ownership has that much of an importance to LeBron, if winning is that important to him, we've heard multiple analysts around the NBA who've covered LeBron, whether it's Chris Sheridan, who has twice predicted exactly where LeBron is going to go, or a guy like Brian Windhorst, who has covered LeBron since high school. They all keep using words like legacy, winning. If that's important to him, here are the teams that I think LeBron James could go to. Let's first start with the most obvious, the two Los Angeles teams. The Lakers have long been rumored a location for LeBron to go to. He has a home out in LA. He's moved his business interests out there. We know his wife loves Los Angeles. You know, the old saying, happy wife, happy life. You know, maybe LeBron really does care what his wife thinks. And you know what? Maybe LeBron likes schools out there for his kids better than the Cleveland, Akron area for his sons who are going to be in high school in a few years. So I look at the Lakers as an appeal because they're the Lakers. They're a legendary franchise. Magic Johnson's running the organization. There's a lot of respect among players for the Lakers organization, their history, their ownership. And I think that if Paul George goes there, as many people expect him to at some point, I think that could also entice LeBron as well, along with the fact that the Lakers have more guys coming off the cap after this season. There's money coming off the cap that can pursue guys in 2019 and 2020. So this is not for LeBron just a one-year deal going to the Lakers. This is also an opportunity for him to have less responsibility of ball handling with Lonzo Ball out there. Paul George could be another scorer for him to play along with. If they keep Julius Randle, that's another weapon that's on part of the inside-outside game for the Lakers. And we know that LeBron has respect for Luke Walton, the head coach. The other team in Los Angeles is the Clippers. The Clippers have the assets and the cap room to bring in LeBron. They have picks 12 and 13 in the draft. I would not be surprised if the Clippers use those picks to go out and get somebody, whether it's a Kawhi Leonard or somebody else, in a trade. And the other thing with the Clippers is that who's running the Clippers right now? It's Jerry West. Who's the owner of the Clippers? Steve Ballmer. You heard Ian Thompson mention ownership. Steve Ballmer's unafraid to spend money. He's unafraid to go in the luxury tax. And he has a head coach who players around the league have respect for in Doc Rivers. But the thing with LeBron is, if it's about legacy, then what better legacy is there than to say, I brought a championship to Cleveland and to the Clippers. The Cavs and Clippers never won championships before I played for them. Now they have won championships, and it helps solidify his argument as one of the three greatest players in NBA history, that he won a championship with three different franchises, two of them being franchises that never won championships before he started playing there. Also, Jerry West, he has a lot of respect for Jerry West. When he has lost NBA Finals, who has consoled him, who has given him guidance and advice? It has been Jerry West. And if LeBron has learned anything from Pat Riley told him a lot of different things in Miami about what it means to be a winner, what it means to be a champion. One of the things that he learned is that winning is from the top down. If an ownership is invested and they bring in a guy like Jerry West to run the organization, and LeBron respects that organization's hierarchy, he is more than likely going to be able to go along with whatever their short and long-term plans are. So outside the LAs, there's another team out west I think is a strong chance at LeBron, and it's not the Rockets. I just don't see him going to the Rockets. I think it's kind of a pipe dream. I don't know if LeBron really wants to play in that Mike D'Antoni offense. I think the Spurs are a strong option, and there's a couple reasons why. One is, if they're going to get rid of Kawhi Leonard, it opens up a lot of salary cap room for LeBron to go there. And if LaMarcus Aldridge is as bought in with Greg Popovich as people think that he is, and we know how much LeBron loves Popovich, well, you can use Kawhi in a trade to get more assets, to get more players, to build around Aldridge and LeBron. Maybe you convince Boogie Cousins to go in San Antonio and join them. When he's healthy, imagine a team that's got Boogie, Aldridge, LeBron, Patty Mills, and then whatever assets they can get in exchange for Kawhi, whether it's draft picks, whether it's young, up-and-coming players. The Spurs are a very smart organization, very committed to winning, very savvy. They know how to do things. If LeBron is really looking for a win-first organization, that is absolutely what the Spurs are. Heading back to the Eastern Conference, like I said, I think there's a 2% chance LeBron stays in Cleveland. I say it's only 2% because, again, if LeBron is not really sold on leaving Cleveland, he may want to stay in Cleveland for one more year because his kids are, in school for one more year. Or maybe he wants to stay in Cleveland for one more year because he just wants to finish out the contract that he signed. Or, maybe the Cavs draft a guy at 8th overall, or they trade that pick and get somebody that LeBron really wants to play with and see how it goes for 1 year. So that could be an enticement for LeBron to stay in Cleveland. But I think it's such a minuscule amount of a possibility. Another small possibility, but I'm giving it about 5 to 7%, is a return to Miami. It's an organization he's comfortable with. He always talks about on social media how much he loves Miami. He calls it the good old days, how much he appreciated the Miami fans, how much he loved them, how much he loves the city. And you know what? It's not a bad place to end your career at. You know, beautiful city, an organization that's committed to winning. There's a lot of positives there for LeBron to go to the Miami Heat. And also, Pat Riley, what does he want to do? He wants to win a couple more rings before he retires. Miami's a place that can facilitate getting a Boogie Cousins. I keep bringing up Boogie Cousins because Boogie is a guy that LeBron has hung out in the offseason and worked out with a bunch the last couple of years. The Miami Heat are also an organization that has the ability to go out and get a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I think the Heat are an organization that knows what it takes to win, and I think it's that winning mentality that could be an enticement for LeBron to say, listen, I'm not really interested in going to something that I'm unfamiliar with. You know, familiarity provides a comfort for LeBron. And if the Miami Heat can make the right moves, it could entice LeBron to come back to Miami. Two other teams in the Eastern Conference I think are definitely viable options for LeBron. One of them is the Philadelphia 76ers. Everyone points to Ben Simmons being there, and I think that is, while a bit of an enticement, the Sixers have two young up-and-coming superstars on their team. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are already there. He doesn't have to convince anybody to come to Philadelphia. He doesn't have to demand any crazy trades or any crazy roster adjustments. I think most people would agree that if LeBron was on the Sixers this year, they would have beaten the Celtics in the semifinals. Another thing the Sixers have going for them is the fact that they have salary cap flexibility and asset flexibility. So they can make the moves necessary to bring in LeBron, bring in an even better supporting cast, an even better bench than what they had this past season. That salary cap room they have is definitely something that you could look at. And whether LeBron signs for 2, 3, or 5 years, there's a possibility LeBron doesn't just totally cement himself in Philadelphia. He may look at Philadelphia as an opportunity to maybe foil Boston's plans, to stick it to the Cavs, to tell the rest of the Eastern Conference, I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. And by the way, I'm going to go to a situation that most people weren't sure how it was going to work, and I'm going to win a championship. Remember, LeBron is about winning. He's about legacy. And if he's about winning, he's about legacy. How ironic would it be if LeBron could pass the torch to the guy that a lot of people think is the next LeBron in Ben Simmons? And again, because they have the assets, like the 10th overall pick, multiple picks still in the future that still have to convey. You have Jared Bayless's contract you can dump on somebody to get some roster relief. And you know what? If the Sixers aren't sold on Markelle Fultz in his future, they may trade him. And you know what? I know for some people that might not be popular, but Markelle Fultz is an unproven commodity. And if some other team thinks, yeah, we can make something out of this kid, and the Sixers can get something big in return for him, that is not at all beyond comprehension. The final team I think that is an option, and it's only an option as of recently. I would have never have said this even a month ago, is the Knicks. Fizdale going to the Knicks says a lot about where that franchise is right now. For James Dolan to hand the keys to that organization over to Steve Mills and Scott Perry and David Fizdale and basically let them take charge of that situation the way they are tells me that that may become an enticement. We know LeBron loves playing in Madison Square Garden. We know he has a lot of respect for the history of the game. The Knicks haven't won a championship since the early 70s. LeBron could be their savior. LeBron could be the guy to bring them back that championship. And again, it's another way to spite Boston. I think there's a part of LeBron that looks at Boston as a bit of a nemesis as a franchise. And if whether he goes to the Sixers or the Knicks, that's a way to spite Boston. It's a way to get back at how many times Boston has made his life difficult in the postseason over the last decade and a half. Also in New York, they have a lot of money coming off the salary cap next year. They have contracts that teams may be enticed by. They also have the 9th overall pick that they can give away to somebody to get a player in there. Maybe Kawhi. Who knows? I think LeBron going to the Knicks would be a long-term play, just like most of these spots. I think the only team that's really a short-term, immediate success winning situation is the Sixers. I can see LeBron signing a 2 or 3 year deal and then bouncing from the Sixers after a few years. Maybe kind of waiting out the Warriors start falling apart in the Western Conference and break up, and then he goes out west to one of the LA teams. But if LeBron's playing the long game, if LeBron is playing the 3 to 4 to 5 year plan when it comes to the back end of his career, then I think he's going to go to a team like the Knicks or the Spurs or the Clippers or the Lakers. I think he's going to try to win immediately in the very, very short term, and with some guarantees, I think the Sixers are that choice. The negative for the Sixers is that outside of Ben Simmons, he really has no ties there. He has ties in New York with David Fizdale. He has a familiarity and ties with the Miami Heat. He has Jerry West with the Clippers. He has Magic Johnson with the Lakers. If Paul George goes to the Lakers, that's a major enticement for him. He loves Popovich. Popovich is in San Antonio. If Boogie Cousins goes to either the Heat or the Spurs or the Clippers or the Lakers, that's an enticement for LeBron as well. Realistically, LeBron doesn't have major ties to the Sixers outside of Ben Simmons. If LeBron is so intent in being in the kitchen with the chefs and being involved in the making of the meal and the process of building the roster and building the team, he can go to Philadelphia and try to make demands, but he doesn't have the familiarity with Philadelphia to force that issue, whereas he has a respect for guys like Pat Riley and Jerry West and R.C. Buford and David Fizdale that he doesn't have for Colangelo, that he doesn't really know Brett Brown like he knows those other guys. So I think that those are all options for him: the Clippers, the Lakers, the Spurs, the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Heat. Those are my 6. And then I think going back to the Cavs is an option. Either way, whatever you think LeBron's going to do, keep this in mind. LeBron doesn't think like you and me. LeBron sees the world differently than most people do. He doesn't just look at who's on the roster now. He's looking at 2019. He's looking at 2020, 2021. LeBron's thinking about what his legacy is going to be. LeBron is thinking about what is the best long-term and short-term situation for him. You know, you have executives like Jerry West. You have a former player in Magic Johnson, an executive in R.C. Buford, an executive in Pat Riley, ownership with the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Heat. What do they all have in common? They all have rings. Brian Colangelo, the Sixers have never had a championship-winning basketball program. Does that entice LeBron, or does that scare him off? These are all questions that we're going to get more and more answers to over the next couple months. Topic number 2 on this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. So the latest rumor going on with Avengers Infinity War sequel, Avengers 4, which comes out in May of 2019. Spoiler warning, giving you the warning now. Don't blame me after you hear this. But when Thanos snaps his fingers at the end of Infinity War, it's to kill off half of the Marvel Universe. Well, one of the theories going on right now, because of the set photos with some of the equipment, it looks like the suggested theme is that the Avengers go back in time. Time travel may be the key to all of this. So you may be seeing Tony Stark go back in time to the first Avengers movie to try to undo what has happened. A couple of reasons they're suggesting this. One is because there's a device on the wrist of Steve Rogers, Ant-Man, and Tony Stark on set of scenes that would have been from the first Avengers movie. The second reason that we have suggested this is also because Tony Stark looks older in these set photos. Now, I don't know if they're going to CGI something with his hair or whatnot, but he looks like they're trying to make him look older, like he's been working on this project for a long time, possibly. Or maybe it took him a long time to get back to Earth from where he was stranded in outer space. Another reason why time travel may have something to do with this is because of the fact that there's only a few ways you can undo what Thanos did. So if they travel back in time and undo some of the things that were done, they are more prepared to prevent Thanos coming and killing off the Marvel Universe. And that would factor into what Doctor Strange said, which was Tony Stark has to live. He saw over 14 million potential possibilities, and he said in only one scenario they win. In that scenario, Tony Stark has to live. So it's a very interesting connect the dots that some people are doing online with what Avengers 4 we're going to be. My only concern is if you're going to do time travel, you can't keep falling back on. It's got to be a one-shot opportunity to get this done and get it done right. So if Tony Stark goes back in time, changes something in the past, comes back to the present, and they refight Thanos again, and then they defeat him the second time round, then we're going to find out what are the ramifications of the time travel. Do they change certain people's storylines in future movies? Is that what they mean when they're saying it's almost going to function as a reboot? Because that's what Marvel has said. In some ways, it's going to be almost like a soft reboot for the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. Because remember, we already have Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Spider-Man 2 are all movies that are coming. So you can't have those characters dead. So the time travel will be very fascinating to watch. I'm not going to jump to conclusions yet because I know that in today's world, people sometimes see what they want to see in set photos. But listen, if they're going to do time travel and they're going to, kind of tie everything together that way, maybe that has something to do with the fact of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. getting renewed for a 6th season. We're going to get more into the significance of that season renewal a little bit later in the podcast, because the news is coming out about what shows are being renewed and canceled when it comes to the Marvel and DC shows. And that is the one of the shows I wasn't sure is going to be renewed or not. It's been renewed, but it's been renewed for the summer. So if Avengers 4 comes out in May, and if Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes out in the summer for its 6th season, then obviously whatever happens in Avengers 4 is going to have some impact on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Topic number 3 on this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. So, Des Bryant is still a free agent as of Wednesday night, May 16th, when I'm recording this podcast. And the reason I bring that up is because Des Bryant came out with a very, shall I say, interesting tweet on May 15th, basically saying that he appreciated the offer the Ravens gave him, but he wasn't interested in a multi-year deal. He wants a 1-year deal for the 2018 season, then hit free agency again in 2019. Well, according to reports, he has not gotten any other offers except from the Ravens after he got released by the Cowboys. Des Bryant has been in decline over the last few years. He was one of the top 10 receivers arguably in the NFL from 2012 to 2014, but then due to injuries with his foot and his knee, well, guess what? His statistics have declined over the last couple seasons to the point where he only had 838 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns last season. So he has declined in his production over the last few years. Part of the reason why the Cowboys released him, part of the reason why they moved on from him. There's also rumors about his work ethic, about the fact that Dez is not working as hard as he used to in the gym, how he told trainers in the Cowboys facility he wasn't going to do squats anymore, that he just wanted to go head over to the dumbbell rack and do curls every day at the gym. He wasn't fully committed to his health when it came to training or to food. If Des Bryant's trying to go out there and have a 1-year prove-it deal, so far it's not going very well for him. And I think this is sad to see Des Bryant's career hit this sort of stalemate because, like I said, he was one of the top 10 receivers in the NFL for a period of time. You know, when he was putting up 16 receiving touchdowns and over 1,300 receiving yards. He was one of the top players in the league. Well, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiving season since 2014. And yeah, he stayed productive with 6 touchdowns last year and 8 touchdowns the year before, not in the same category as was before. And now that he's going in the 2018 season, he'll be turning 30 during the season in November. You kind of have to wonder, where is Dez Bryant in terms of his career? Can he find a way to extend it by recommitting himself to training, recommitting himself to the process of being a great receiver? I'm not really sure if the commitment is there, because if he got that lazy and that indifferent in the final year with the Cowboys, I'm supposed to believe he's just going to hit a switch and get better moving forward. I just don't see it. I don't see how that is going to work. I hope for Dez's sake that this is not the end of the road for him. I hope for his sake he is able to get another opportunity, get another gig moving forward to get better. But I just don't see where it's going to come from for the 3-time Pro Bowl wide receiver. I think that there are teams that definitely would be an interest for him. You know, Jason Witten, his former teammate, is going on the record saying that he thinks teams like the Packers and the Saints make a lot of sense for him. But those teams haven't called yet. There are no reports of him working out for those teams offering him any contracts, those teams offering to want to bring him in to check him out. So I don't know how long Dez is going to wait to see if someone comes calling. You know, maybe he waits till training camp. Maybe he waits to see who gets injured before he decides what he's going to do. It's just a shame to see a guy who's going to turn 30 this year hitting the skids of his career so early, a guy who was so productive with the Dallas Cowboys. 73 receiving touchdowns in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. Very productive wide receiver, very good receiver, but you could also argue, was he the byproduct of playing with Tony Romo? He did play the majority of his career with a high-caliber quarterback. Not that Dez isn't a high-caliber quarterback, but he's a different kind of quarterback. Dez looked for the tight end many times last year when Dez was lollygagging down the sideline, not giving maximum effort. So Dez really needs to show that he's committed and he's still invested in playing football, and then hope that someone comes a calling. Topic number 4 on this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. So Margot Robbie will be reprising her role of Harley Quinn from the very controversial Suicide Squad movie that came out a couple years ago. And it will be in a movie that will be called Birds of Prey. It will begin production January 2019. And basically it will be done in time after Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is done filming. This is going to be considered the first all-female structured superhero cast of a movie. It's going to be built around crime-fighting heroines like Black Canary, Huntress, and Barbara Gordon's Oracle, and that Margot Robbie's character of Harley Quinn is going to be the crazed supervillain of the film. Margot Robbie has personally described it as an R-rated girl gang movie. Not fully sure what that's supposed to mean, but the confirmation of Birds of Prey basically eliminates any rumors of other movies, whether it's Gotham City Sirens or the Harley Quinn and Joker spin-off movie. In turn, the confirmation of the Birds of Prey movie allows us to get a clearer idea of what DC's plans are for their cinematic universe moving forward. There's been a lot of rumors about what they're going to do and not going to do with the upcoming Flash movie. We know that DC's Aquaman is supposed to come out December 21st, and that the Shazam movie is coming out in April of 2019, and Wonder Woman 2 in November of 2019 or 2020, depending on which news source you're working off of. DC is doing something very different than Marvel, and in some ways I think it's actually a good thing. DC was trying too hard to have its own Avengers and trying to have its own Iron Man and all these different things. But DC, in many ways, even though they're both comic book based heroes, are not the same character, not the same stories. So if DC wants to continue with this a little darker type of world, a little bit more gritty and serious type of environment with superheroes, then having a Birds of Prey movie definitely falls in line with the evolving nature of the comic book scene. One, because female heroes and female villains are becoming more and more of a popular thing. We're seeing Marvel's Captain Marvel come out next year. We saw all of the success of the first Wonder Woman movie and how popular that was. We know that Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn was a very popular character from the Suicide Squad, even though many people didn't like that movie per se. So for her to come back and play a villain in a movie where you have a group of female heroes working against her is definitely a very interesting and fascinating twist on things. And I think it tells you that DC is, as of now in 2018, much more open to the experimentation with movies than they were when they first started this process. Remember, when they first came up with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Wonder Woman and Justice League, I mean, those were all characters that were well known, understood. There was no controversy about them. It was straightforward. We knew exactly what we were getting from those characters. Whereas when you look at the potential Flash movie, or you look at Aquaman and Shazam, and now Birds of Prey, they're getting a little bit more experimental with their universe. They're stretching the limits of who is and isn't in this universe and how they all interconnect. So I hope for DC's sake they find a way to make all of this work. I hope they don't waste these opportunities they have, because Marvel is making a killing off of these movies. They're doing an amazing job making this cinematic universe work for Marvel, whereas DC has been tripping over themselves half the time. Hopefully Birds of Prey, along with Aquaman, along with Shazam and Wonder Woman 2, at least move the DC universe in the right direction as they try to figure out all the other mess of what they're going to do with guys like Batman and the Flash and so on and so forth. Topic number 5 on this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. So it came out on Wednesday night that Mike Budenholzer, the former head coach of the Atlanta Hawks and former assistant for the San Antonio Spurs, is now going to be the next head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. And this is significant for a couple reasons. One, Budenholzer had met with a few different teams before this hire was made. In fact, he even met with Toronto Monday of this week, but Toronto never made him a contract offer. Meanwhile, Budenholzer goes to Milwaukee, has breakfast with Giannis Antetokounmpo, their superstar, and he has already reached an agreement with the Milwaukee Bucks, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. And this is something that's going to change the conversation, because what has the conversation been for the last few weeks? We talk about the Celtics. How good can they be when Kyrie gets healthy and comes back? We talk about what is the future for the 76ers, young stars in the Eastern Conference. You know, where is LeBron going to go? All these conversations we're having. And meanwhile, Milwaukee made the playoffs this year and went 7 games to the Celtics with an interim head coach. That tells me that the Milwaukee Bucks are a good head coach away from really making an impact in the NBA, not just next year, but the year after. Let's not overlook the fact that the Milwaukee Bucks have a very interesting set of decisions they had to make this offseason. Now, it obviously started with deciding on their next head coach. But beyond that, they have free agent decisions to make. Jabari Parker is going to be a free agent. So his rookie contract is done. He has no more years left. They're going to decide, do they bring him back or not? Jason Terry's a free agent. If he leaves or retires, how do they replace his production and leadership off the bench? Eric Bledsoe, they brought him in for a specific purpose, which was to be an offensive scorer next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Well, if he can't be that offensive guy, Can they get rid of him? Can they trade him this summer and maybe bring in somebody else? He's only making $14.5 million, not the most expensive contract in terms of NBA contracts. The Bucks already have Giannis, they have Chris Middleton, they have John Henson, they have Tony Snell, they have Thon Maker. They have some talent there already. What else can they get? Whether it's free agency, whether it's through trades. Is Avery Bradley a guy that the Bucks could possibly get in free agency? Would they get involved in the bidding process for restricted free agent Marcus Smart? What does Budenholzer want to do with this team? We know Budenholzer made a big deal about defense when he was coaching those successful Hawks teams a few years ago. To see overemphasize the defense in Milwaukee and take these big athletes they have in Milwaukee and turn them into a defensive force. Budenholzer, to me, holds the key to the future of the Eastern Conference, because while everybody talks about the Celtics and the Sixers and Fizdale going to the Knicks, and where does LeBron go, and what are the Heat going to do this offseason, the Bucks go into the draft and go into free agency with a big picture plan. And part of that big picture plan is, how can we put more talent with Giannis Antetokounmpo and with Chris Middleton, two of the best young players in the NBA today? And if they get the right free agent moves and additions, do the Bucks, a Bucks team that is going to have some cap space, not a ton of cap space, but some cap space that adds some veterans. And if they trade Bledsoe, they can get rid of more salary as well, whether they package him with their draft pick or whatnot. This Bucks team could make the proper additions to make life very difficult for the Celtics and for the Sixers. We saw the Bucks give the Sixers trouble a couple times this year defensively. We saw the Bucks take the Celtics 7 games. So we know that they have the athletes and the talent to really push the envelope in the Eastern Conference. It's going to be interesting to see how this team plays under their new head coach, Mike Budenholzer. Do not forget about the Bucks in the Eastern Conference. Everyone talks about how LeBron doesn't want to go west because the West is deep with the Warriors and the Rockets. Well, it's not like the East is getting any easier. The Celtics are skyrocketing to one of the best teams in the conference. The Raptors fired their head coach. Where are they going to be next year? The Sixers are going to be only better next year than this year, and so will the Bucks. Can the Bucks be the thorn in the side of the Eastern Conference as the Pacers were in the 1990s? Topic number 6 on this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. I want to dig a little deeper into the news about what shows are coming back and not of the DC and Marvel television shows. Bigger and bigger marketplace. Netflix has got numerous comic book based shows. Hulu's got their shows. Fox, ABC, the CW. So there's a lot of different things to keep track of, and I kind of wanted to give a overview of what shows are being renewed, why, and what the future holds for those shows. I mentioned earlier in the podcast about Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So ABC has picked up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for its 6th season. The significance of it is that the 6th season will not premiere between the traditional September to May 18-19 television season. Instead, they will release the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season after the next Marvel's Avengers movie comes out. So it will be the summer of 2019. We will see the next installment of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there's a couple reasons why they're doing it. One, because obviously in the summer there's a lot less pressure to hit ratings goals. So you're not taking up that 8, 9, or 10 o'clock slots on ABC and taking away from another show that may do a better job in that time slot. Another thing is, obviously, whatever's going to happen in Avengers 4 is going to have an impact on the show. Remember, Clark Gregg's character of Phil Coulson, which has been a mainstay of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is going to be in Captain Marvel. If they're going to do time travel in Avengers 4, there are all these different elements that are going to be going on in 2019. So whatever happens in the final episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may get erased, may get partially undone by whatever happens in Avengers 4. So putting it in the summer allows Marvel to say, Avengers 4 is done, and now here's what the universe looks like after everything happened with Avengers 4, and that starts with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, Season 6. I wasn't really sure if there was going to be a 6th season. I felt like the show may have been running out of real estate, but as I've been watching the show in the last few weeks, I see that they're really trying to tie up some loose ends, and I do appreciate that. So I think that that is going to help them moving forward. Speaking of ABC shows, Marvel's Inhumans will not be renewed. It has been officially canceled by ABC and Marvel. Not really surprising. The show was very poorly received, did not have very good ratings. It was pretty poorly written, to be honest with you. Also, the showrunner for the show is probably never getting a Marvel job ever again, because they also did a very controversial job with Iron Fist as well. Iron Fist Season 2 has a totally new showrunner and different set of writers. So between Iron Fist shortcomings and Inhumans failures, certain people just don't have jobs at Marvel anymore. And that show is doomed from the beginning. This idea that Marvel was going to make Inhumans a major part of the Marvel Universe was always a silly conversation to be had anyway. It was never going to go that direction. We were never going to get Inhumans to be as popular as mutants are or anything like that. That was always some silliness. Among the shows that are being renewed and coming back for their next season, starting with Arrow is coming back for Season 7, but it will have a new showrunner. Beth Schwartz takes over as the new writer and as the new showrunner, kind of, bring some new writing, some new concepts into Arrow. Couple significant aspects to figure out. So one, Season 6 is coming to an end. Oliver Queen faced a lot of decisions, a lot of mistakes, a lot of new obstacles. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to change with the show moving forward. We know that Beth Schwartz has been part of the Arrow producer crew. She has been a co-producer on numerous episodes, but she has not been the showrunner before. She's also been a writer for the show for years, so she's very familiar with the characters in this show. She's also done writing for Legends, DC Legends of Tomorrow, so she has a familiarity with what the CW's DC universe is. So when she does change the direction, I think it's going to be in a good way. It's not going to be in a way that is really going to mess up what the show has been doing for the last 6 years. I think Arrow does need a breath of fresh air when it comes to the direction of the show. I think that there's only so many ways you can tell the depressed nature of Oliver and his struggle emotionally. Oliver's struggle with his two different identities and caring about his loved ones and his family. There's only so many ways you can tell that story. So it will be good to see if we can wrap up some loose ends at the end of the season of Arrow moving forward into Season 7. The Flash has been renewed for Season 5. The Flash is one of the highest rated shows on the CW for the last couple years. It's outdoing your non-comic book based shows like Riverdale and Supernatural in the ratings, and its ratings are so good that it does rival some of the other networks in the same slot. So not a surprise Flash is back for Season 5. A bit of a surprise that DC Legends of Tomorrow is still getting renewed. I think part of the reason why it got renewed is because Matt Ryan's character John Constantine becoming a series regular did help boost some of the ratings in Season 3, helped give the show a little bit more stability moving forward. So now they're going to go into Season 4 with a different look, a different attitude, and a chance to kind of put a new spin on the show. Again, I've said this before on the podcast. I don't know how long this show can last, though. I like the characters. I enjoy the storylines. They're fun, but the reality is, how much time traveling can you do? Are we finally done with time traveling or not? I'm not sure. I hope we are, because time traveling is getting exasperating with that show. So hopefully they can be a little bit more grounded in Season 4. Supergirl is also getting an extension. the show has really been shaky for season 3 because they took that long hiatus in between episodes. People almost forgot the show was even on television anymore. I had some people asking me, did they cancel the show? Is the show still on? I'm like, yes, the show is still on. It's just that it's taken a major hiatus in between episodes at this point. I think that was a bad choice by the CW. I understand the CW is trying to emphasize Black Lightning, emphasize the ending of DC Legend of Tomorrow shows, and let them stand on their own 2 feet, but you can't take a young show like Supergirl off the air for numerous weeks at a time and hope that people just pick up where they left off. Someone like me, just because I'm a loyal viewer doesn't mean everyone else is a loyal viewer as well. You can't treat your hardcore viewers the same way you treat your casual viewers. It'll be interesting to see what Supergirl's ratings are for the last few weeks when they come out all together. Hopefully season 4 is able to be a little bit more substantive. I felt that the soap opera-ness of Supergirl at times is getting a little petty. I do think it's interesting they're kind of painting this strained relationship between Lena Luthor and Supergirl now with the dispute over kryptonite. I think that they may be setting the stage for Lena Luthor to maybe betray the superheroes at some point. That would be a very interesting storyline, but at the same time, when this season is done, I'm already ready to say the Supergirl season 3 is up there as one of the worst seasons of all the CW superhero shows of the last several years. Another show that's gotten officially renewed is Black Lightning. Black Lightning had great ratings. It did very well. They're coming back for season 2. It'll be interesting to see, though, with the strength of the show and the ratings, do they let him cross over like all the other shows? How do they explain his existence? If you go back and listen to my podcast talk about Black Lightning, I have a couple questions. One, the timeline doesn't add up. This is supposed to be 2018. If you go by the timeline on the show, it's not actually 2018 on the show. It's either 2016 or 2017. So Black Lightning is a year or 2 behind the other shows. Is Black Lightning on the same Earth as what set of superheroes? Is he on maybe Earth 15? Is he on Earth 1 with the Flash? Or is he on the same Earth as Supergirl? These are questions we have to have answered if they're going to do a crossover with the rest of the CW shows. And if they do a crossover, do they come to Black Lightning's Earth, or do they get Black Lightning to go to someone else's Earth? A lot of questions to be answered with that show, but not a surprise is coming back for season 2. Another show that's been renewed, it's been on the bubble, is the show Gotham. It will be back for a final season. So after the 5th season of Gotham, there will be no more Gotham television show. They're going to have to move the show for next season because Fox made the deal with Thursday Night Football, so they can't be on Thursday nights anymore. Fox has already been in the process of shuffling around what they're doing with different shows because of Thursday Football coming in. It looks like what Gotham is going to do is basically tie up any loose ends from the end of season 4, set the stage for how Bruce Wayne becomes the Dark Knight in the future in season 5, and basically dealing with the landscape of Gotham after the 5 years of the show. It's going to be interesting to see how Gotham ends this season because they've already introduced prototypes of the Joker. They've already introduced the Riddler. They've introduced a lot of major Batman villains. They've made such a deep dive into these villains already. It'll be interesting to see how they really become the classic Batman villains. At least Gotham's telling of how they become the major Batman villains they do moving forward. Interestingly enough, we do not have news yet on the future for the Fox television show Legion or the sci-fi television show Krypton. I strongly believe Krypton will get a renewal. We probably won't get that announcement until we're closer to one of the Comic-Cons, whether it's San Diego or New York, though. I think Krypton has done well enough in the ratings, and I think it has been received very well to the point that it will be back for another season. although I'm not really sure how you're going to move on from the climactic ending of this season, because you're dealing with Brainiac. Who exactly would be the villain for season 2, unless you're going to say the villain is Zod, if he hangs around after this season. The General Zod, the villain of Superman, is in Krypton. Krypton's done very well. It's a very fascinating prequel story about Krypton hundreds of years before Superman is ever born and sent off Krypton to Earth. I guess I expect it to be picked up. I wouldn't be very surprised if it's not picked up. And one more thought on the television shows that are going on right now. We know that Netflix is also in the middle of filming the Daredevil season 3. It looks like the Netflix shows are very healthy right now, just to kind of encapsulate all the shows. There's very few superhero shows that are really doing bad at this point. It's only a handful of shows that are struggling. It's been Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's been Supergirl, it's been DC Legends of Tomorrow, and outside of those shows, that's pretty much it. Inhumans was just a colossal failure and a bad job by Marvel to let that garbage get off the ground the way it did. I mean, that was just an insult. That was probably the worst Marvel project they've done under the Marvel Studios banner at this point. And listen, nobody's perfect. Everyone's going to make a mistake somewhere, right? So I guess Marvel's going to make it with the Inhumans. It's going to be interesting to see how long they allow all these shows to go on. You can't keep television shows on forever. Even popular shows like a CSI show or CSI Miami, they have to go off the air at some point. You look at some of the classic television shows of the last 30 years, whether it's Seinfeld, whether it's Friends, all these shows have a shelf life. So comic book shows are going to have a shelf life as well. And when you're dealing with characters that are not A-list characters or B-level characters, okay? We're not dealing with Superman. We're not dealing with Aquaman or Green Lantern. We're talking about Black Lightning. We're talking about White Canary and Ray Palmer's The Atom. We're dealing with characters that are very low on the popularity scale when it comes to not just hardcore comic book fans, but casual fans as well. All these shows have a shelf life. One of the shows I did not mention it, it's also been renewed, is The Gifted on Fox. Honestly, I'm very surprised that show is getting renewed. And I'm surprised it's getting renewed because of the fact that I quit on that show. That is the first show that I bailed on. And I just threw my hands up in the air and gave up. I think the show is just trying too hard. It's so extremely separated from the so-called X-Men universe and mutants that we know from all the movies that I have zero interest at all. At least Legion keeps my interest and is fascinating and has elements of the comics in it. The Gifted is almost like a generic knockoff. Like, well, we can't actually say characters like Professor X, but we're going to act like that we have our own version of X-Men on the show or something. I don't know. I just thought it was poorly written and stupid. I'm just very surprised that show got a renewal. It's not very well written. The actors are okay at doing their job. It just had no interest for me. So I'm very surprised that show has been renewed. Thanks again for listening to this week's edition of the Mutant Blitz podcast. If you like the content I bring you each and every week, hit that like button below, subscribe to the channel so you catch the episodes each and every week. If you have any thoughts or comments about what you heard on this week's podcast, drop it in the comment section below. On next week's podcast, I will be doing a review of the Deadpool 2 movie. It's coming out this weekend. I'm very excited for it. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So with that in mind, I'm looking forward to catching you next week with the review of Deadpool 2. And be sure to tune in each and every week right here on this YouTube channel for the Mutant Blitz podcast with me, your host, Josh Hennig.